I'm Stephanie Covington, and I'd like to introduce the treatment program Beyond Trauma, a healing journey for women to you. This program has been developed for women just like you, women who'd like to learn more about trauma and abuse in their lives. In the over 20 years that I've been working with women and consulting with the agencies and the institutions that serve women, I'm constantly reminded of the tremendous impact that trauma can have on women. It can impact our inner lives. It can impact how we think, how we feel, what we believe. It can impact our outer lives, our behavior, and our relationships. Because of this, I've written the program so that you'll have an opportunity to learn about how trauma and abuse may have impacted your life, an opportunity to learn about how common this is for women so that you don't feel alone, and to also learn some new coping strategies. You'll also have an opportunity in the program to talk about the relationship between substance abuse and trauma. We know that many women use alcohol and other drugs in order to deal with the pain of the experiences they've had in their life. A girl is still at risk for physical and sexual abuse in her adolescence by the people that she knows, by family members, and in dating situations. So in some ways, what we think is that the kind of sexual abuse that females experience is actually more crazy-making. You see, because there's something about it, while violence of any kind is abhorrent, if you say you hate me and you hurt me, at least that feels congruent. But to say you love me and you hurt me, how can I make sense of that? So that's one of the fundamental differences. And I want to, when we look at trauma and abuse in women's lives, most of that trauma and abuse comes under created suffering. It's what's created by human beings. It's not natural. We think that that is probably the reason that women seem to have more mental health issues connected to their trauma than men have connected to their trauma. We're here with some of the women who've participated in the Beyond Trauma treatment program, Charlene, Lynn, and Judy. And we also have Roxanne, who is one of their facilitators. They're going to share with us some of their experiences of participating in the group. This is about social structure, and it's really important that we begin to understand this when we think about working with trauma and abuse in women's lives. That part of what happens in women's lives and why women are at greater risk for experiencing interpersonal violence in their lives has to do with the way our society is structured. It has nothing to do with the woman herself. In this session, we're going to be talking about the interconnection between substance abuse and trauma in women's lives. There are many women who've experienced traumatic events who use alcohol or other drugs to help them deal with the pain. I'm going to need 6 of you to come up and volunteer and help me create a family. So when there's crisis, there's danger, and there's also opportunity. And that's what I think doing this work is really about. Now, part of how we're going to begin our training and think about this is we're going to start by looking at some of the material that's in the introduction and the facilitator's guide. Now, the curriculum has some various pieces to it. It has the facilitator guide that has a really substantial introduction to it, more so than probably most materials you've seen. I mean, why so much material? That's because I think in doing this work, it's very important that as the facilitator, you have some basic understanding about trauma. So there's a way to help you sort of learn how to do this as you go through it. The most important thing that's going to happen in any group that you facilitate, or the most important thing that's going to happen with any woman you work with, is going to be the relationship you create with her. That's what's going to make the difference.